I think that students and kids will respond better and families will feel more supported and together if this conversation isn't about control. It's about a partnership. It's about an understanding. It's about equipping kids to use social media in a productive way. It's not about eliminating it. I love the video you had from New York where they had parents engaging in social media in a healthy way with their kids. I think that's a very important tool, but it's not about eliminating social media. It's about helping them understand and how to use these online tools in a productive, healthy way.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media. And we also ask them questions that we get from parents all over the country in our program. Now let's get back to the interview.
Hi, I'm Luke Rasmussen. I'm the superintendent in Ogden School District. We have 10,000 students, are served by 18 schools.
Hi, I'm Adam McMeekle. I'm the Executive Director of Student Achievement in Ogden School District, and my primary role is to serve our curriculum and assessment needs for our students.
Gentlemen, it's so great to have you here on our podcast where we highlight real parent questions in communities all over the country. We get district experts just like both of you to chime in on what's going on in your community, what can other districts learn. Here at smartsocial.com, as all of our viewers know, we're here to keep your kids safe on these digital devices like social media and everything else so they can someday, when parents are ready, they can shine online for that dream career, dream college, dream internship. They can launch into their career like I did at Disney Studios in brand marketing to learn how to do great work in an industry and be an employable young professional. That's our dream for you parents. And all the while, we want to keep your kids safe and we want to build those conversations between your kids. We got a lot in store in this episode. All right, Superintendent, my first question for you is, it's really on the topic of parent participation. Some of our other superintendents who watch are going, Josh, that's parent engagement. Exactly. We want to make sure, and we hear from district leaders all over the country, Josh, if we can just partner with parents a little bit more, we can fix a lot of these problems. And that's my dream here. Superintendent, what are your suggestions for other districts to increase parent engagement? Are there any specific channels that you've found or events or any ways that you're communicating with parents that get the biggest turnout or any learnings that you've had over the last few years?
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. So as a superintendent and a parent, I know how social media can shape the lives of our students. I mean, it's a powerful tool, sometimes for good, sometimes not for good. And so we can't really afford to ignore that impact on our students. And so what we have found is that we've really tried to establish really good communication with our parents around the use of social media and on the use of cell phones, and really tried to partner with them to help them understand the why behind either a policy or the why behind what we're asking our parents or our students to do with social media. So upfront communication is huge. And then one of the tools that we've been able to use, especially at our high schools, is getting better turnout for our parent-teacher conferences, where we invite them in. We create a fun environment. We have student performances. We have free food. In order to earn some of that free food or to earn their tickets, they can bring their whole family. We actually have sessions that they attend, and they'll go to the auditorium and they'll hear about social media and the new cell phone policy. They'll hear about tools that we're trying to have their students use in school safely. And so we've been able to use those formats to be able to get a better turnout. Not only is it important for them to be a parent-teacher conference, it's very, we want them to talk to their teachers. We want them to engage in their students' education, but then using that time to be able to educate parents and bring them in as partners. And so I think a lot of upfront communication is essential before that, and being very clear with parents about what you're asking them to do, so that there's no surprises, like a phone call about, their student misuse of a cell phone at school or anything like that. So we just try to make sure that we're really opening those lines and channels of communication with parents.
I love it. I want to just double click on that. For all of our listeners right now, this is brilliant. We want the parents to understand the why. That's what the superintendent just dove into. And that is a 1,000-year-old technique that's brilliant, that works. It's proven. It's not like, oh no, what app is hot right now? If humans understand the why, and including your kids, they're going to probably behave a little better. So I love what the superintendent said. I also heard something that is so true. How do we incentivize people? I'm going to call it, superintendent did not use these words, but I will. How do we ethically bribe parents to come to these events, right? And there's an incentive, there's something there. I love that. Figuring out what works in your community to get parents to come, and there's a little bait and switch. You're here for this, but let's talk about this as well and get it all. I love that. And I think that's working nationwide. Superintendent, I think you're onto something beautiful there. Okay, Adam, I want to hear your input on this and maybe add to that. Give us some insights. What are your suggestions for other districts to increase parent engagement? Is there anything in your community that has worked, that hasn't worked, that you've learned from, so we can gain that insight as well?
I appreciate the question, and I'll build on what the superintendent has started and really speak to how we've operated under his leadership. So from my perspective, we need to take principled action and make sure that that's transparent. And so if we believe and we espouse these values that we value parental input, we need to be able to show that. And so setting up consistent reciprocal exchange. We're not just receiving information, but we're also transparent in what we're doing with that information and how we're responding. Even when our responses go against a suggestion, we should be able to inform our parents and our community why we made a particular decision, whether it was from policy or some other contextual reason, and then invite them as a partner in that exchange as well. And another thing that our superintendent has led out on and our district firmly believes within our community is we want to meet our parents where they're at. We have great school leaders who are doing wonderful things within their community. They host a lot of events to bring that community into their school. And since we know that the community is already coming to the school, if we need feedback, if we need to exchange and engage, we will show up to those events and take advantage of those events. And again, follow up with that consistent practice. We are using your information, whether it's sending out a survey every year we do for establishing our calendar. We receive information and we've had excellent responses. And I believe that the ongoing responses are because every year we're transparent in the exact nature of those responses, what our parents, what our community wanted and how we're responding. And we try to do the same in every environment, in every location, at every level. And I believe that's led to just increasing engagement. And that's something that we challenge ourselves. You never feel like you're good enough. And I believe if you really respect your community, that's the way to go, to be transparent in your action and engage that reciprocal engagement.
Brilliant. I love it. I heard parental input and feedback and then follow up with, we heard this and we are responding in this way and here's why. I absolutely love that. Gentlemen, I want to get your feedback now on what we call excessive screen time impact on student behavior. We're hearing from leaders just like yourself. These devices are taking so much of the kids' time, their attention, and sometimes their energy that we think it's important to bring up. So Adam, I'd love to get your feedback on this one. How are you seeing excessive screen time impact students' motivation and their mental or physical health? It doesn't just have to be at school, but what are you hearing about at home? And give us some insight there.
I appreciate the question. And this is one that parents bring up often when we're talking about their students, whether they're seeking advice at home or they're concerned about the way we're operating within our schools. I think that's a great concern. And it just shows, again, that the parents want to be engaged in their students' lives, in the school, and work with us to create the best conditions for their student. What we're seeing is that, from my vantage point, looking primarily first at what we're in control of, either through policy and practice, and how the students engage with screens while they're in the classroom or in other learning environments. It's a difficult question to answer. So one, just getting a definition around what constitutes excessive is challenging. And because there's variability, we want teachers, we want our administrators, and even parents to lead with intentionality. And sometimes that will call for a digital device, and other times it will call for offline engagement. So rather than trying to make it a binary or try to put in some prescriptive requirements that really do not lead to the root source, trying to then instruct both parents and then in the classroom create these learning moments where students and teachers and parents are thinking about what they're trying to accomplish in that moment. What learning is intended to happen, and then what's the best approach. Because ultimately that will lead to a deep connection to our portrait of a graduate where digital literacy and some of these other characteristics we're trying to promote will really shine. We want students to be a partner in that learning from the earliest, pre-K, K, all the way up to the point where they're walking across our stage for graduation. To not just rely on us to tell them when it is right or wrong to make a decision around screen time, but when they feel like it is the most valuable and it leads to the most meaningful engagement.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that feedback. Yeah. For all of our listeners right now, parents are often asking us, hey, Josh, what advice would you give a student to help them recognize some of the red flags of a dangerous stranger? We get this question in all of our big events. Well, let's hear from a real student about how she might help a friend recognize those red flags.
If I had a friend talking online to a stranger, I think that I would feel a little bit uncomfortable with the whole situation. I would advise against it because so many indirect issues can come from that, and it could cause something to be worse than if they had just unadded them in the first place. Some red flags that I would have to advise them to cut it off with this person or to stop engaging would be if the person starts to get very involved in their personal life, and they seem to be very intrigued in what's going on with them and wanting to know all the little details about what they do and who they are, and just very personal details and things that you wouldn't normally share with a stranger in real life. If they're very persistent and constantly wanting to talk to my friend or constantly trying to be involved in their life or wanting to speak to them, I feel like that's kind of a red flag. Another thing would be if they ask them to ever meet them anywhere in person right from the start, if they feel a sense of being uncomfortable or their intuition is just saying it's wrong, or if my intuition is saying something feels wrong with this, then I think that's a major red flag.
Now, to all of our viewers right now, remember, I no longer fly to your city to do one big parent night event like I used to do back in the day. 29 states, 250,000 kids I've spoken in front of. We now do weekly live parent engagement events, and they're taught by real teens. You saw that video right there. Teen-led video lessons, which are amazing. We have these live events and replays in 12 languages. So if you speak English, Espanol, Mandarin, or anything else that we're covering, you are in luck. And then we have a premium parent newsletter that's phenomenal. A lot of parents, remember, if you're with a partner district and you want to come to one of our weekly incredible events on all of our topics, remember you can bring your kids. This is very middle school and very high school friendly, and kids are rolling their eyes less and less than when they talk to their parents, and we become that person. Now, I want to introduce to you what goes right in most communities when we do this. Again, superintendents watching this right now and district leaders, there's a different way to do this. Rather than getting people just on campus, there's a way to distribute the load. I want to share this. Spectrum News 1 ran something really neat. These are our partners in New York City. You are the one that needs to decide whether it's too much screen time or just right.
But parents and teachers know when it comes to teenagers and social media, that's easier said than done. So in an effort to protect students from the dangers of being chronically online, schools are doing something you might not expect, asking parents to get online too.
It makes an awareness to parents and students. It also gives them an understanding of some of the warning signs.
That's just one reason why Deron Wilson, an executive director of school engagement, says his district uses the app Smart Social. It's an online app designed to educate parents and students on how to avoid strangers and dangerous situations online.
Kind of like, I want to say, a trap. When you get involved in the cyberbullying, you might start friending somebody on an app, or somebody might say, hey, they might send me your picture.
Smart Social founder Josh Oak says while there are a lot of things that can and should scare us online, the increased number of parents he is able to reach underscores the importance of growing social gathering spaces online.
Back in the day, I used to be one of the top social media safety speakers nationwide, but I was flying around to certain school districts, and they're the best of intentions, but only 20 or 30 parents would show up. We get 10 times the amount of parents to show up, and they want to learn from the convenience of their home or office how to keep their kids safe on social media. They want to ask live questions. They want to learn how to have dialogue starters with your kids that actually get their kids excited about talking with their parents and strengthening that relationship.
Darcy Wertique, Spectrum News.
Now, parents, remember, we have a different event and flavor every single week, and I want to share with you what that looks like. If your district is a partner, we're logged in at Smart Social. We're recording this today towards the end of the school year. Summer is a-coming. We've got impact of screen time on motivation, health, and academics. These are our live sessions, but we also have incredible summer motivation. It's our summer streaming series. We've got them in Espanol. You'll see at all times. We've got at least 6 events coming up in the next month, and we've got a replay. These are world-class events. It takes dozens of people all over the country in different communities of all different walks and lives and backgrounds to do this research. Everybody's raving over it. You can click on any one of these. Pros and cons of video games, avoiding strangers in dangerous situations, the TikTok guide, all kinds of shining online. This is one of our trademarks. And throughout the year and back to school, we have resources for school districts to deep dive into this. We're so pumped about all of the support that we're getting from communities just like you, our viewer. All right, we're back with our experts. I want to ask about AI in the district. And Superintendent, my question for you is, what are ways your district is encouraging students or teachers, you can take this wherever you want, to use AI safely and responsibly, whether it's in the classroom, at home, or just the whole child approach?
So we felt that it was very important to kind of quickly start looking at AI and embracing AI. And we realized as a district that we needed to have a really firm and a guiding framework that would help us implement AI safely and effectively for our students and our teachers. And so we set out to create that. You're lucky because Adam has created what is used really across the state as an exemplar of an AI framework. He's speaking at a national conference on this, coming up at a national school board conference, and I'll let him kind of take on that AI framework. But we just felt like we needed some guiding principles, as this is such a fast-paced, fast-changing technology. Tomorrow, it's going to be better than it is today. It's going to be more powerful, that we needed to be able to be nimble and be able to use AI and embrace it for our students and our parents and our community, but do it in a way that is safe and responsible. And so I'll let Adam kind of dive into that deeper, if that's okay with you.
I love the question, and I really like this topic because it touches on so many other things that we do. I think going into it, as AI blew up across the scene, there was a lot of pressure to act, but act without information. And one of our kind of guarantees we always make to our community is that we do things with intention. And, to do them with intention, you need some information. And immediately, from my position as the superintendent entrusted me in leading this effort, I felt this paradox as a public education district and thinking about the schools within our communities. We are seen in many ways as this stable force that holds on to the traditions and brings the community together. Yet simultaneously, you are challenged to innovate and lead change at a pretty rapid space to keep up with these educational demands and ensure that our students are walking out of our schools equipped. So I was feeling that tension as we went in. And to begin, first suggestion I would have for anyone is to make sure that you're getting a lot of voices at the table. We brought together the largest task force I've ever run was with this AI task force. We had teachers, instructional coaches, district specialists, administrators initially because we were focused on the teaching and learning thing, the teaching and learning aspect of this at the beginning. And we had a task force of about 45 to 50, depending on the day. We broke them up into different groups throughout the task force to engage in. To start, we thought we were starting a policy task force because at that time, working closely with our IT department, we weren't sure, given the nature of AI as a tool, but it obviously has a different type of impact than other digital tools we'd seen in the past. We weren't sure if we had to rewrite policy. So we went in with that idea, but as things emerged, we recognized that our overarching policies were soundly written and covered the tools specifically. So what we ended up with was a framework. And it established clear principles for our district that were aligned to our district strategic plan. They were aligned to our portrait of a graduate that we operate in our district to ensure that the decisions we made kept with our vision, and then we were able to communicate out in a more meaningful way with intentionality to our community. And that's led to every decision from the tools we've selected to shape learning in our classroom for our students, right, to protect their privacy and engage with them around digital literacy topics, to our next steps, which are to further engage with parents and community members around this particular topic.
That's great. I want to throw you a little bit of a curveball because all that's perfect. What does failure look like? I want you to define, I'm a practical and tactical guy on this program. What is okay, Josh, failure is if the kids just use it to cheat. Or Josh, success is if they use it to brainstorm. Some of our other programs, and we do AI night back to school. We teach AI for student success and to minimize cheating. It's a big deal, right, gentlemen? I mean, we have to be careful here. I've heard of some kids, on Reddit, we always go and see what people are commenting on. And some guy was terrified that his niece said, I want to borrow your laptop, and just went into ChatGPT and said, what is 4 + 4? Looked at the answer and wrote it down and just started asking it questions and not thinking. And he went, oh my gosh, I am stopping this. You are not ever using that to do that. But at the same time, It is very curious, Adam, to say, teach me about the history of Europe. All kinds of interesting, curious things that you can become a tutor of knowledge. So what I want to hear from you here, and I want to push back in a loving way, gentlemen, is what is bad use of AI and what is good use of AI from a practical standpoint? Adam, I'll start with you. I'm going to push back, and apologies for that, but I think it's important. I think we all have looked at it enough to know what that looks like.
No, and I appreciate the pushback because it's our responsibility to live our words, and we can, speak at this high level with these guiding principles. But if it's not promoting practices in the classroom, or if our students are walking away from our classroom, changing their behaviors, then it's not working. I will challenge the word failure. So in our regard, what are we seeing for our continuous learning? What are these areas in which we're not quite hitting the mark and we're responding to, and rather than it being like an absolute failure. So I think immediately, even after releasing the framework, things that we're seeing, people are enticed by the technology and they want to use it. But to your point that you kind of made up earlier on the student side, we're also seeing sometimes on the educator side, not leaning into the degree of intentionality we expect from all of our teachers and our students, just putting the technology into use in the classroom. Then it tends to get overused or it isn't aligned to learning objectives. Then you lead to situations where you have a student seeking ChatGPT or other tools to put in 2 + 2 = 4. And in this regard, the language that we've leaned into because of some of emerging evidence that's coming through in some articles is that cognitive offloading. As we talk to our teachers and we engage with parents, we want to think about not just AI tools in general. It even connects back to the screen time conversation. Why are we using that particular tool? And is it the best tool in that moment for our intended outcomes? And ensuring that we're having that degree of discussion. It's nuanced, but I believe with complicated challenges that we need to trust and respect our community, that we can have sophisticated conversations. Part of that is even how we took our framework and the first thing we applied it to was some guidance for teachers. How to use AI in your classroom and even how you can communicate that through your disclosure statements. And we have challenged our teachers to make an assignment level decision. Every assignment they do, we want them to make a decision about AI use, from permissive to moderate to restrictive. But it's not just about making the decision. We want to compel the teachers to continually engage with the students as partners because these are all learning moments. So if they make the choice to be permissive or restrictive, we want them then to layer on the conversation as to why. There is a reason why we're allowing it or we're not allowing it for this particular assignment. And it's all about the intended thinking, the intended outcome, and the artifacts we want to create in the student's best interest. And that will take time to develop, right? Students won't immediately get it, but if we're consistent with our actions, we ultimately believe that our students will start making better decisions on their own.
I love that. For all of our listeners right now, let me make it a personal story. As I used to travel the whole country, a lot of districts and schools they're the nicest people in the whole world that work at school districts. They would always say, okay, when you land, let me tell you how to get to our school, where all of our kids are at. Hey, that's great. I didn't know how to tell them. I have cognitively offloaded the driving directions to my very safe phone magnetic mount in the rental car. It's going to get me there without me thinking so I can safely look at the road. That sounds neat. Let me tell you the downside of that. Number one, I don't get to know the city like north to south, east, west, but I can safely get to the destination in the time allotted. And it goes turn left here, turn right here. So whereas the school wanted me, I had to save that cognitive power or that energy for being on stage with, let me tell you, 1,500 kids in a room is exhausting. I'm good at it, but it is exhausting. These two gentlemen know. But at the same time, if I was doing 4 + 4, I have to learn how to do that on the back of a napkin. I cannot offload that stuff. And should I learn the city that I'm in? Probably. But if I'm going to present and I'm not going to live there and I'm not looking at houses to plant my family there, then maybe it's okay to cognitively offload, as Adam just said, and as the superintendent is telling kids, we want them to do the back of the napkin calculations and to remember that. In my case, I don't want to know your highway numbers and have to freak out because I want to put all my brain power in front of the kids to entice them to want to shine online and do great things in the future and not make a mistake online or do the parent night event. So I do think it's important that we look at what Adam just said and say, in most cases, creativity or early in that process is good. But towards the end of it, let's not forget how to get the kid to think and wonder and be curious about that. I absolutely love that. Superintendent, correct me. Am I off here? What are your thoughts?
No, I think you're spot on. I think, what we want to do is have our teachers use it responsibly in a way that enhances the students' understanding of their learning, to use it to assist in writing and generating ideas and brainstorming process, but for them to actually do the writing on their own. And so, as one example. So I think the key, Adam touched on it, is really having teachers intentionally think through what they're going to use AI for and how they're going to use it, to what level, and let the students clearly know up front, what is acceptable use and what is not acceptable use, and trying to set those clear parameters for our students. So it cannot replace them. We need to keep students learning, but how can we embrace AI to enhance that student experience, to enhance their learning, to deepen their understanding of topics, and to be really creative. I mean, just the other day, we had a STEM competition type thing here at our district campus. And one of the stops where the students competed was on recreating an AI image that matched an image that was already created. And the people who won, they had to get it to the closest as the original image possible. And they had to keep prompting it and changing it and adjusting it and grappling with the question and prompting AI to get that perfect image to where some of them almost matched it exactly. So, just doing those fun, creative things and helping students understand, not just creating an image, but being really good at using AI to get exactly what they wanted out of it and to be able to use that in a presentation or be able to use that to enhance their learning. Those are just some things that we're trying to do.
I love that. I think this is good. We've been doing this a long time by interviewing people before AI was around. And in the very early on, a lot of districts were scaring kids. Don't ever use that. Parents were scaring kids. And now I think we've kind of hit that happy medium where we're going, yeah, this is what cheating looks like. This is what plagiarism looks like. And this is what creativity looks like. And I love where the industry is going now. Kids can use it carefully with parents. If you're watching this, there is not a part of the internet your kids should be on that you are not also looking over their shoulder. I am going to represent the government, also all the law enforcement I interview on this podcast, and remind you that predators would love for you to give untethered access to the internet to any kid under the age of 18 to just go, yeah, talk with whoever you want. I'm giving you full privacy. Parents, I'm in a loving way. I'm going to be hard on you. I do not want that to be in your family. Let's be careful. Go to Smart Social. Look at what can happen. We care about the conversations in your family. I'd rather you be a little protective than open and letting random people chat with your kiddos. I love what both of you are saying. And I want to get to the final question for you both. Superintendent, I want to hear from you first on this. And it's really around screen time, as you can see on the screen time impact on home environment. What does balanced, healthy screen time look like? And what do you suggest parents and their kiddos can do to come to an agreement around screen time to decrease arguments at home?
Yeah, that's a tough topic. And as a parent, I feel it with my own kids all the time. That 13 to 16-year-old age in my household where I've had 3 kids, I've had to really work through this with. I feel parents. I think that kids will respond better and families will feel more supported and together if this conversation isn't about control. It's about a partnership. It's about an understanding. It's about equipping kids to use social media in a productive way. It's not about eliminating it. I love the video you had from New York where they had parents engaging in social media in a healthy way with their kids. I think that's a very important tool, but it's not about eliminating social media. It's about helping them understand and how to use these online tools in a productive, healthy way. And again, I'm going to go back to the why. I think having those conversations with your kids and schools with students on why it's so important that you have control and why it's so important that you use this responsibly. You know, that this is to keep you safe. It's to give you a break. It's so you get better sleep. It's to, having those really important conversations with your kids and making sure that, it's not me being mad at you. It's not me not trusting you. I want to trust you, but we have to have, just like anything, whether it's driving or whether it's, when I'm asking you to be home at night or why I'm asking you to eat really healthy food or whatever those conversations are that you have as a family, it shouldn't be any different with cell phones. It's an emotional thing, I think, for kids because it is the way they interact with the world and their friends. But we just need to be able to have that really good dialogue with them and build that trust. And hopefully that helps that conversation move forward. When we've had to do some real big initiatives at school, and whether, really strict cell phone policies, that's the approach that we have taken. And it's been very helpful with students and parents. And consistency is super, super important. You don't just forget about the conversations you've had, that you're very consistent and you build those habits with your kids.
That's great. To all of our listeners, what the superintendent just said, that's so great. And he alluded to, and I want to double down on that, is whenever you're using the example of driving, it's a good way to think about screen time, social media safety, arguments, and everything else. And again, privacy. Josh, I don't have the right to know, or I don't want to overstep my bounds, and I want to let my kid use the phone and give them the privacy they need. Well, if you gave them a car at the age of 16, in California, you can start driving at 16, I think nationwide. If you gave them a car, the most clunky of cars, it's $2,000 that barely runs, do you have the right, parents, to have an extra set of keys to that vehicle? Yeah, absolutely I do, Josh. Every parent says that nationwide. And exactly. And the reason for that is, what if one of their friends puts something illegal in the trunk? What if they're driving? That's a 4,000-pound bullet that could kill another family, another somebody, anybody. It could hurt your career because they could change your family's dynamics. So of course you have the right to take it away and also to look in the trunk and inspect it at any time and go inside of it. It's not, I give them privacy and I don't want to know how fast they're driving or where they're, no, because it can impact another family. The same is true with their devices. And I think the superintendent just alluded to that, and it's a brilliant parallel. Hey, if I give you a car, I get the chance to take it back. And this is a $1,600 car. This is almost as much as the car that I got when I was young, and it can hurt people just the same. So again, I don't want to harp too much on the privacy and safety, but somebody needs to hear it, and we find that a lot. I love where you went with that, Superintendent. Adam, I want to hear from you. What are you doing in your department that you would suggest to parents? What does a balanced and healthy screen time look like? And what do you suggest to parents all over the country and their children to do to come to an agreement? How do we come together? Explain the why or whatever so we can decrease arguments and be on the same page.
I think you'll hear some common themes throughout my answers around intentionality and consistency and building off on what the superintendent said. And the nice thing about that is if we can agree on some of these guiding principles about how we interact with our students, we'll strengthen both what happens in the classroom and what happens home, because then we are working in conjunction, this cooperative partnership. And certainly there are different aspects to that type of conversation that happens at home that are much more personal. However, being consistent in developing those good habits. It just so happens I've been taking a deep dive into the psychology and science of habit building, and a lot of it will come down to the consistency. It's similar to classroom behavior management in our schools. That doesn't happen just on day one. It again is engaging with students over time and having a plan and being consistent in how you interact with your students and respond to when poor behaviors occur. I'm thinking about my own daughter as well, and then any advice I give to other parents is one setback shouldn't define how things are going at your home. Have a plan, converse with your students, speak about what you're hoping to accomplish. To your point about the car analogy, which I appreciated, while they're at home, even though as they grow up and become teenagers, they present themselves in a more adult-like fashion, they're still adults in training. And that's part of our responsibility as parents and part of our responsibility as students, as teachers, as well as we engage with our students, to ensure that we do have conversations about why we're doing certain things and how that will ultimately present life advantage as they work through some of these instances at home. And to be consistent and don't get discouraged by setbacks, because developing habits takes time, but we just want to be consistent with that positive message to their benefit.
Excellent. Adults in training. To all of our listeners today, what a great little episode. There's so many nuggets these gentlemen presented to us. I hope you took some notes. I'm so grateful for these two for taking the time. Thank you to both of you for taking an hour out of your day. You're so busy. Here you are taking an hour out to help people on our podcast. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Adam, for your time today.
Thank you.
All right. To all of our listeners, we've got a lot of great events coming up. If you're watching this over the summer, we have a ton of back to school stuff, whether it's AI, whether we're looking at how to do a screen time agreement for your family so you have less arguments and you become closer to your kids. I know, crazy, right? Come to our event, bring your teens, sit them next to you. They'll roll their eyes a little bit less at us because we're the expert outsiders. I talk a little bit about my days at Disney and the branding and all that. And they'll hate you less. And they might like you more. Let us help you have that difficult conversation, because we want to keep your kids safe from the bad people out there. And the bad people in your house can be a screen time that really takes your kids' focus, attention. They feel less happy and relaxed. We want them to get that amazing sleep, amazing studying, and amazing experiences with your family. That's our dream. And parents, I want to leave you with this. Whatever you're doing online, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite. Your kids are watching how you're behaving. I'm so grateful for you watching our show. We'll see you all on the next episode. Have a great rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. Smart Social helps parents understand technology and social media to keep their kids safe and successful. Be sure to join one of our weekly online live events to become the smartest parent on the block so you can keep your kids safe and protect their future. Also, don't miss our 450 plus online resources and replays you can watch on demand in multiple languages. Are you a school district wanting to unlock these resources for your parents? Reach out to us so we can protect your whole community each week. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you on the next episode.